The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
This is News Talk.
Now you're welcome along. So as he steps away from the Irish Independent after 38 years, the great Vincent Hogan, one of this country's finest sports writers, joins us just after 8 o'clock to reflect on his career. After 9, Darren O'Sullivan and Colin Boyle on the football season, which is finally alive. We have a concept called knockout football, which is upon us. And this hour, Declan Hannon, also on the show, has captained Limerick to just the 4 All-Irelands and counting, 3 National Leagues, has won 5 Munsters, has won 6, 3-time All-Star at centre-back. Not bad for a guy who started off in the forwards. 53106 is the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Michael McCarthy here in studio. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
What have you done?
There was a point like a couple of years ago where Anthony Daly was talking about his record as a 3-time Munster winning captain was under threat from Declan Hannon, who's now won 5 in a row. He's lifted that, so his record is well beaten at this stage. I was thinking that actually at the, pretty quickly after the match on Sunday last week. The disappointment to Clare and so on, and then I was thinking, like, all we talk about is how good this Munster Championship is and how competitive it is and how compared to Leinster it's nothing, and Limerick in that environment have won 5 in a row, and Hannon's collected all of the cups and he's their true inspirational leader and so on. So when you're in the midst of it, I think sometimes you can overlook how amazing it is.
Richie McCormack with us as well. Good evening.
Hey, gents.
So Vincent Hogan on the way after 8 o'clock, formerly, strange to say that, chief sports writer with the Irish Independent, 38 years with the Independent, 5 years before that with the Irish Press. I must confess, we've recorded this conversation with Vincent. He was in earlier on this afternoon. He popped in. We'll play you a radio edit. It went on touch longer than we'll have time to play you, but we'll play you the vast majority of it between 8 and 9. And 5 years before that at the Irish Press. So that was a good innings.
Yeah.
You've seen it all there, and he's covered a multitude of sports and done so brilliantly. So it's a great chat. I mean, hell of a career.
Yeah, what I love actually about Vincent it is how much every sport is almost covered with the same gusto and the same energy, and you could ask him a general question of like what's your favourite place, and like literally any sport could come out of his mouth. You wouldn't be surprised, and that's I feel that's a dying thing somewhat. I do feel this kind of like just like a general love and appreciation of all sports is something that I feel like we could definitely do with more of. I mean, the thing you talk about that I probably enjoyed the most is his relationship with Pauw McGrath, and obviously the book Back from the Brink is one of the best Irish sports books of all time, and Vincent obviously had a huge hand in that, and it's just that's a really enjoyable and nice listen, and their relationship to this day being as good and as positive, and basically Paul's a family friend of the Hogans, and I just very heartened when you hear those kind of things,
Yeah, Pauw McGrath book 06. I also did Nicky English's, Henry Shefflin's, Davy Fitzgerald's, Colin Cooper's, Eddie O'Sullivan's. Fitted.
A few books. I'd say there's a book or two to come as well, to be.
Well, I would think so, yeah. Not retiring, but stepping away from the Irish Independent after 38 years. He'll explain his thinking and his rationale after 8 o'clock. Declan Hannon this hour, and then we're talking GAA after 9 with Colin Boyle and Darren O'Sullivan, where there is a concept, Richie, called knockout football, which I promise you is going to significantly change your enjoyment of this week's matches as opposed to the last 200 weeks of Gaelic football, it feels like.
It might catch on this. Yeah. It might catch on. And that's the worry.
Thank God it's here.
That's the worry, is that people might get used to this knockout culture and there being like actual stakes as opposed to somewhat being stakes at games. Like, to be honest, like the last couple of weeks of the championship have actually been fine, and then the fact that you got to the business end of the groups was, things are being decided, and then it felt like there was a bit of momentum and a bit of oomph behind things at last, but we finally get going. It's just like it's a pity. Like we are veering into, and I know we've talked at length about the changes that the GAA make to football in particular, just on a purely aesthetic basis, and one of those is based around championship structures for sure. We're veering into there being games just for game's sake, and I don't know how healthy a relationship that has with the sport, whatever it happens to be. I mean, we don't pay attention to, in soccer, we obviously do, but we don't really care about the group stage of a Champions League anymore, whereas before obviously that meant something. And similarly, it's going to be later and later in the year by the time the wider populace gives a monkeys about the football championship, and that's dangerous, because what you're going to have then is potentially the same big teams coming to the fore every year, and then it becoming a tiresome kind of prospect. So the GA kind of need to be careful about this, because they have had an okay year in terms of the product, but like if it continues this way, there is a chance that games for game's sake, people will kind of zone out completely before we hit late June, early July.
Well, thankfully, from this point on, we don't have to have that conversation. We'll get back into that between August and next May. But in the meantime, let's enjoy the next month.
Look, this is what, like, Ger's been espousing this more than anyone, in that, like, you know, it'll all be worth it in the end. And it's like, whether he's right or wrong, I don't know. I kind of disagree, but it's almost like I don't care at the moment, because now we're into the dessert, and we get all the good stuff now. Like, you know,
you've eaten your vegetables.
Yeah. And we Galway Mayo on Sunday is just like, this is, talk about a championship coming alive. Yeah. It almost doesn't matter if that game was 2-1. The drama and the jeopardy, we keep talking about jeopardy, it's full on jeopardy here. I think we'll just keep it alive, and I think it will bring people front and centre, and honestly we won't worry too much about what's come before now that we've got, like, whatever about the system being right or perfect or non-perfect, right? We haven't been in a stage, I think, before where we do have these 12 teams left, when it's been, you know, we've had, obviously we used to have the last round of qualifiers going into the quarterfinals, but the teams weren't, I think, set up in the way that they are now, because you had the problem with the uneven provincial structure, you know. So we have had plenty of preliminary quarterfinal weekends before they were called round 4 of the qualifiers. Yeah. But I still think that we feel like we've kind of caught maybe the 12 best teams or something close to it.
No, that's true.
This year, that I think just makes it that little bit more tantalising.
Well, hopefully that does make all the patience and the eating of your vegetables before dessert worthwhile. As you say, it is rare we've had the 12 best teams set up like this. So Galway Mayo on the Sunday, and then even Saturday, so tasty. I'm not sure, with a gun to your head, you'd confidently pick a winner in any of these games, which again is fantastic to be able to say. Knockout stages: Cork Roscommon, Porky Queeve 2 o'clock, Kildare Monaghan 4:45 O'Connor Park, and then Donegal rejuvenated against Patchy Tyrone Ballybuffet 7. So all of those work.
Do you find it a pity, or does this not even enter your head? And I do understand that like, say, now none of them are directly clashing, but say Donegal and Tyrone, which I think would interest all of a football first audience, is going up against Galway Tip, which will interest all of a hurling first audience. And I think so much so that it would, like, and those two camps are so divided with those 4 counties, if you know what I mean, it will almost mean the other game is like dismissed, as opposed to a lot of GA people love live sport and will watch the other code, and so whereas this is like, it's again such a condensed season where there's no choice but to do this. Like, I mean, where else are you going to put these games? They're spread out as well as they can over the course of the 2 days, I would say, but ultimately, like, I mean, I know from my point of view, my focus will be on the hurling on Sunday evening, and I'll miss a good bit of football. I'll catch up on it, but it'll be past, it'll be done, you know?
No, it is a pity, as you said, consequence of how condensed it all is, but it is a pity. Stuart, in Dublin, I grew up reading Vincent Hogan, haven't stopped since, really going to miss him, can't wait to listen later on. Yeah, it's at 8 o'clock, Stuart, and the same big teams are to the fore every year, is a texture. True, but not to this extent, not the Big 12 all through on account of the unevenness of the provincials previously. So this is a touch different. We'll see how it all plays out anyway this weekend. Colm and Darren on the way after 9. Colm Boyle and Darren O'Sullivan. The Newsround, as ever, is brought to you with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. So Vera Pauw speaking to the media this afternoon, Richie.
Yeah, things are getting interesting now from this point onwards. Vera Pauw says a final decision on Aoife Mannion's World Cup availability won't be made until next week. The Manchester United defender has a knee ligament injury and won't have a protective brace removed until Monday. Speaking ahead of tomorrow's friendly with Zambia, Pauw provided an update on Mannion's progress.
Aoife is in her return to play. She is in the brace, as we know. and that will go off on Monday, and then we have to take a decision. She's been seeing in the meantime, so everything is going according to plan, but it's really, really tight. So we see Monday, we get more update, and then next week with the squad announcement, we will know for sure if we take the chance or not.
Well, you really hope she does make it, because I would say about 15 minutes into her debut against China, her name was already on a seat on the plane. She was just that obviously worthy of it.
The only concern you'd have, and again, we've been talking about this basically all the way since they qualified, is of all the players to have an injury doubt and waiting until the last minute for, you don't want it to be the new person in the squad that, you know, there could be some resentment towards, you know, and like, especially if it feels like, you know, there's kind of special treatment in waiting until the last minute to someone who could be injured, you know. Now, I don't think that will come to pass, but it's just, there's a nagging thing in the back of my head going, of all players that we're holding off on, why is it the new player?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if anyone's feeling resentful, you can just say, well, just watch her performances again.
Yeah, no, it does speak for itself.
Pauw, naturally enough, again asked about the contract situation, Richie.
Yeah, she's happy to let talk over a contract extension, wait until after the World Cup. She's recently stated her hope to have negotiations concluded before they jet off to Australia, but Pauw says her focus is purely on the tournament itself.
Let me be clear, I'm very happy in Ireland. That is, everybody can see that, everybody feels that, so I want to stay. But I'm not part in that process. That is Kieran Medler is talking. I'm not involved in that. I do talk, of course, about the content with management, like I always do, but he takes care of that.
We'll see how it all plays out. I guess there's that weird thing of, if it's not done before the World Cup, somebody's negotiating position is going to be a lot stronger afterwards, and somebody's less so.
When was the last time Ireland were in a World Cup in any sport that didn't involve the coach's contract?
It's kind of interesting that
feels like it's a rugby thing and it goes both ways. Either it's not signed or it is signed.
Funny, I was going to say, it's interesting the RFU have given Farrell a contract to the midpoint of the cycle, which might be the way to do it. You're not a lame duck manager, and you're not getting a 4-year cycle guaranteed. You have to earn it. And I would presume if the first year or two goes well, maybe the first year you just get an updated one for 3 years or 5 years to get to a similar point after the next World Cup.
The only thing is, in football, it's 2-year cycles because you've got Euros, so
it's harder.
It is harder, isn't it? You either do. I think you go 2 years. I think she's done enough to earn it before we go, to be honest. But
what if they lose every game 5-0?
But sure, like, I mean, that's it. Like,
but then akin to.
But do you want her out of the contract and us to go to win the World Cup, or, you know, or whatever?
Look, if she wins the World Cup,
whatever uber success is for Ireland, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. Obviously, the danger is you commit to a coach, things fall apart at a World Cup, or a tournament reach a natural conclusion, and then you're married to each other. Yeah, lovelessly.
Okay, you're very, very dour note, Joe.
Sorry, they're
going to the World Cup for the first time ever. This is Italia 90 for women's football in this country, and you're like, oh, Jesus, loveless marriage.
No, that's true. I accept that point. Was it Trapp where there was a contract given for far too long after?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's all. That's the one that looms large in my thinking. But you're right.
Yeah, that World Cup 2014 was a bridge too far for Trapp, unfortunately.
Rich, the Heineken Champions Cup. Well, of course, said Leo.
Yeah, it had to happen. It had to happen. The Irish provinces were all given tough draws in the pool stage for next season's Heineken Champions Cup, perhaps none more so than Leinster, who must play the back-to-back defending champions and the team that's beaten them in those last two finals, La Rochelle. They were drawn in Pool 4, along with Stade Francais, Sale, Leicester and the DHL Stormers. Such are the vagaries of the groups that Leinster can't play the Stormers, as they both hail from the URC. Connacht's return to the Champions Cup will be in Pool 1, alongside their former head coach Pat Lam, now in charge of Bristol, of course. Their other opponents will be Saracens, Bordeaux and Lyon, for whom Paddy Jackson signed today. The Vodacom Bulls are the team Connacht won't have to play there. In Pool 2, Ulster will come up against the newly crowned Top 14 champions Toulouse, along with Harlequins, Bath and Stuart Lancaster's Racing. Cardiff also in that pool. And Munster were in Pool 3 today, along with Bayonne, Toulon, Exeter and Northampton. Glasgow Warriors pad out that pool. The first set of fixtures played across in December.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Do you know if Leinster or La Rochelle are at home for that game?
Home and away.
Right, I am on the spot, Joe. I don't think it's not home and away. They only play 4 fixtures, so they play 4 teams, so 2 of them are home, 2 of them are away. Okay. I'm not sure the lay of the land in terms of, but Leinster didn't get top seeding, of course, because Toulouse won the top 14 final on Saturday, so that might add to the interest there.
Yeah. Come to Dublin. Come on. It was great the last time.
I kind of feel like Leinster will beat them at the pool stages, and not that it means nothing, it'll mean something, but if they met again in the final, I think La Rochelle would feel, we have your number here, boys.
Did you watch the top 14 final?
No, I followed it a little bit and saw some highlights. It looked like an incredible game.
So
game. Intermac scored a winning try with a minute to go or something, was it?
Yeah. And the extraordinary thing was that I'd say 3 minutes before that, Toulouse must have won a scrum. They were being killed in the scrum, actually. La Rochelle killed them in the scrum. Some other reason, anyway. Intermac kicking for touch pulls I don't want to be cruel to mention him, but the best way I can describe it is a Billy Burns. So he kicks it out on the full, and so the next 2 or 3 minutes Intermac's just lost them the game.
Yeah,
God, per Intermac. Lots of French director TV close-ups of Intermac.
Okay, yeah.
I was talking to someone who really knows their rugby, and he was texting saying, well, Intermac's just played himself out of the French team. And as I was reading that text, I heard Intermac, and from the halfway line cuts through the La Rochelle defence, runs half the pitch, scores the winning try. Game over.
Yeah.
Barely no time for a kick-off. Joe Molloy, Toulouse all running onto the pitch.
What a way to end the season.
Oh my God.
The biggest point though is that I realise now why I wasn't watching it. It was because I was watching the US Open, and I'm sitting here talking to you, who was sitting here watching French rugby final.
What tends to happen to me is
impressed.
I overindulge early on
the golf.
I can't even look at a golf shot by Saturday for a while.
And you spend so much time watching the early lads out who are 6 over.
Yeah.
Commentators talking to them like they still have a chance.
Yeah, no, I've been watching Jason Day smack it around at 3 over all day Thursday, and by Saturday I was like, I'm taking a break from this. I can't watch another ad for dentures on Sky. I just need to. I'm going to pause. I'm going to forward through the ads later on, and I'll come back to it.
At least they know their audience.
I know, they really do. I mean, the ads on the golf coverage are quite something.
It's like me watching ITV4 and being bombarded with life insurance and funeral planning while I'm trying to watch Minder of a morning.
All of that stuff.
Consolidation. Loans.
Yeah. So
there's one of those ads on there. There's one of those ads on there. I have to get it out of the way. There's one of those ads on there about it's a lawyer's firm, and they open with medical negligence is one of the worst forms of negligence, and they're going, yeah, you're probably right, but I wouldn't say that overtly.
Isn't medical negligence one of the top 5 killers?
Yeah.
Again,
I don't know the top 5 offhand.
Yeah, I think I heard someone say that about the States.
God,
it's heart disease, cancer, Brandon Flowers.
I would like to think it's not true over here.
Killers.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Some medical professional will let me know if that's true or not.
Hello, Mick.
It's more that I knew he was from the Killers and still didn't understand what you meant. Jesus.
Sorry, should I be getting this? What is it?
He said he was naming top
right,
5 killers and said Brandon Flowers.
Ah, well done.
Yeah. I ruined it.
The Killers are kind of having a little resurgence, are they? Did I see them playing somewhere?
But they never really went away as well, being a live prospect. Yeah, they never went away.
Yeah, it was hard to move in 03 for that ad on Lifestyle Sports Song. What was it again?
Mr. Brightside.
Oh my God.
No, Joe, try and go to an indie disco and don't have that played. You'll soon. Yeah, it's still a thing.
They were good for a couple of years.
Ah, yeah, no, it was good.
Their follow-up album to that was very good. Samstown.
Yeah, no, I agree. Not to be ridiculed. I feel like Richie's ridiculing them somehow.
I feel like he's there.
I feel it's there.
He's just above it. He's just above
You're
the
above that.
See, me and you have heard of them, Joe.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're.
I'm sorry that very popular song went worldwide in a mainstream ad and that upset you, but it was a good song, all right?
Listen, you and your dentures, just I'm happy you're able to smile whenever it happens to make you smile.
So anyway, where were we? We were talking about La Rochelle and cricket then. So we had the Ashes yesterday.
Yeah.
Mick walked in here earlier perturbed at what had happened to Irish cricket. So this is a very bad situation with World Cup qualification point of view.
Yeah, really bad. Ireland's hopes of World Cup qualification suffering a major blow this afternoon. They lost by 1 wicket to Scotland with the final ball of the match in their second qualifier game in Bulawayo. Ireland will return to action on Sunday against Sri Lanka, and captain Andy Balbirnie was asked afterwards to assess their efforts in the field.
I think the plans were pretty clear from the guys. Execution could have probably been a bit better, but I think I can't be too critical of the bowlers. They put in a good shift there, and when you're bowling at a set batsman who's hitting the ball out of the middle a lot of the time, it's very difficult. So look, we'll have a look back and see where we could have got a bit better for the next game.
Afghanistan were in a similar position 5 years ago, so there is still hope for Ireland.
Yeah, there's always hope. I think until you're actually out of the competition, you believe you can get through, but it's an uphill battle from here, but I'm sure the guys will be up to the task.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
No, it's really...
They lost their two easiest fixtures on paper against Oman and Scotland, and still have Sri Lanka to come and one more fixture. They need a miracle in these last two matches if they're to make the top three in the group.
Had we been feeling good about Irish cricket? Was it in a good place, or was this foreseeable?
You would have thought they would win both of these matches. I mean, when Scotland won, the commentary was like, Scotland finally get over Ireland, like as if this is, beating Ireland was as much of a deal as winning a qualifying game, Okay.
And Ireland set them a massive total as well. It was 287 that Scotland needed to get, and Ireland were just really profligate in the field. There were a couple of really silly fumbles, really bad bowling as well towards the end, giving away silly extras that should never really happen at that, especially at that point in a match. I was aghast. I was aghast when I saw Scotland basically galloping up and taking in this total, because we should have been home and hosed.
Like, it came down to the very last ball. They needed 2 to win off the last ball. Like, Ireland had got a wicket. The previous one, they got a no score, or like should have had a no score the next one, and they just ran for a run, hoping that the wicketkeeper didn't throw it at the stumps. They had a really bad field that should have been a single that turned into a 4 in the over before. It was such small margins that every single one of those mistakes cost them the game. And that's such a pity, because you win that, you're in good shape. You go and Ireland play well against Sri Lanka, as they tend to play up in these fixtures, but it's a disaster.
Parallels with the Irish football team here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Richie, on the Katie Taylor Chantel Cameron front, we have news of the rematch.
Yeah, we're zeroing in on exact dates and venues on this one. Eddie Hearn says a rematch of Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron will likely take place in November. Last month, the Matchroom promoter all but ruled out Croke Park as the venue for that fight due to timing. They are likely to return to the 3 Arena, with Hearn telling the Matchroom YouTube channel that the fight is cert to happen this autumn.
Yeah, I mean, Katie Taylor's going to exercise that rematch clause against Chantel Cameron. We'll plan that fight for probably November time. It's going to be a huge fight. Katie, there was no talking her really into any other fight. It's all she wanted was a chance to rematch Chantel Cameron. So, Chantel Cameron will come into that fight as the A-side, as the favourite as well, and it'll be a massive night.
So it's interesting, Rich, you're saying likely return to the 3 Arena, because when I saw Chantel Cameron interviewed the day after the fight, she was saying, she was down to Steve Bunce from memory, and she was saying, a lot of this was on Katie's terms, coming to Dublin, doing it her way. I'm not so sure it'll be in Dublin next time, but clearly it's heading that way.
Yeah, from a contractual point of view, I think most of the cards lie on the Taylor side of the table. And just from the point of view of a revenue generator, I mean, Croker's out of the offing because they needed September, I think, at the latest to get that to happen. September was always going to be too early for a rematch. The later you pushed it, then the more likely it was to have a roof over its head. So that's going to be the 3 Arena, because they made a fortune off that fight last time around, and they probably will again.
Yeah, tickets weren't cheap. So we have Champions League draw.
Yeah, Shamrock Rovers, should they advance to the second qualifying round of the Champions League, they will face a pretty tough opponent. Stephen Bradley's side will come up against the Danish champions Copenhagen. Rovers will face one of the champions of Andorra, Montenegro, San Marino or Iceland in the first qualifying round. If St. Pat's get past Dudelange in the Conference League, then they'll play either Glentoran or Gezira of Malta, Cunna's Quay of Wales or Iceland's KA await Dundalk if they beat Bruno's Magpies, and Derry, if they beat Tórshavn, they'll play Finnish club Cups in the second qualifying round.
Okay.
You could be making up at least 50% of those names.
You should do that.
Bruno's Magpies is my favourite.
I've laughed at 2 days in a row.
Bruno's Magpies sounds like it should be an 80s TV show that used to be on CITV.
Starring Bruno Brooks.
And I fully believe that it is. Bruno Brooks.
There's text in. We really don't have much time, so I'll just hand it over to Michael McCarthy. Lads, thoughts on Stephen Kenny's call to arms? Have you seen this? So Stephen Kenny...
I read it last night,
like a 700 word, it was embargoed until last night to speak to the journalists, and at one point it starts very dramatically with him saying, can you all take a step back? And then he launches a incredibly staunch defence of his record pre the Ireland job, uses lines like, nobody in modern history has won more than me. I think he's talking about
domestically.
No, Irish manager.
Yeah.
Because I think Pep Guardiola, amongst others, would have things to say. But very staunch defence of his credentials pre-getting the job. Very staunch defence of how he's handled the job since he's got it. And I know what I'm about, know what I'm doing. Don't need X, Y, and Z, all you guys to tell me either way. And it was supposedly very impassioned, talked for 5 minutes, 700 words. And I'd say most people have read it to some extent or other today. Do you like him doing this? I have to say, I hate the party political stuff when he's defending his record, when pre-match Tony O'Donoghue asks him a fairly innocuous how you feeling about tonight question. Yeah. I guess he would have felt post-Athens that this kind of a speech was required.
I found it fascinating that he had so much of his record to hand, like in a quite a like immediate way, you know, like as in he listed off the amount of the teams that his Irish clubs have beaten in European games. He listed off how many like cup finals he was in, Irish cup finals, Scottish cups, leagues, etc., like that, and it's all just to hand, like, you know, by Rhoda almost, you know, which I don't know what I'm even taking from that, other than this is someone who's thinking about his place in the game, I would say, and why he deserves to be here. I have no problem with it. I think it's fighting, and I think that it's probably the character that the players need to see, and I thought it was interesting, and I actually have to say I enjoyed reading it last night.
Okay.
I don't really see a major problem with it, do you? I do agree with you in general, by the way, that every question doesn't need to be so defensive and all of this, but I think in this scenario this was it felt to me like, from the suggestion, the way the lads wrote it in the pieces today, that he was getting kind of similar kind of questions, and he was batting them off one by one, and it was like, hold on, let's just do this once and for all. This is where I am.
That seems to be that way. Yeah. We're way over time. Arthur's giving me daggers there. I guess in one line, ultimately if the results aren't going well, none of it matters, but I suppose he has to project a position of confidence in himself and strength at the moment, as opposed to someone wilting and, God, I'm really sorry everyone, it's not going well, is it? Yeah. He has to project that, so I guess that's his thinking, but ultimately results. We're out of time. Richie, thank you very much. A lot of support into the Killers, by the way, Richie, this evening on text. Just going to mention
that's unfortunate.
And Michael, thank you.
Thank you.